Good day, everyone. Benga is my name. I'm your regular host on this channel. I welcome you powerfully to this video today. I want to talk to you about the problems that most African countries are facing. The problems most African countries and most developing countries of the world are facing. The causes of their problems are not far-fetched and they are closely related. Number one thing that causes the problem in most developing countries is a language barrier. Is a language barrier. In most developing countries and the third world nations, they have these language barriers. They speak different languages, such that in some countries like Nigeria, we have more than 250 languages spoken. So we are divided based on language into about 250. So that there are three main ethnic groups, three main languages: the Hausa, the Igbo, and the Yorubas, being the three main languages in Nigeria. I'll use Nigeria as a case study for other nations of the world that are developing and having similar problems. So out of the three ethnic groups, Hausa has the largest population, followed by Yoruba and then the Igbos. Others are minorities, trailing these three in one way or the other up to the lowest and the most and the one that is lowest. Now, when appointments are to be made into government, the people that are majority tend to take more of the appointments, whether they are qualified or they are not qualified. There's what is called the quota system. There's what is called the federal character. So the federal character will tell you so number, like the states in the regions in Nigeria, you have 6 geopolitical zones. So like in the Senate, we have 3 senators from each state. So every state must produce 3 senators. Whether the person is brilliant, he has anything to offer, whether the group that or the people in that place, whether they have something to offer or not, they must be represented. You don't look for the best hands from everywhere. When employment are to be made, it is also made with respect to this federal character. Recently, the customs did some tests, aptitude tests for graduates that they want to employ, and everyone has to go to his or her state to write the test and to be shortlisted. And they were invited to their states to write it, and they wrote. From here, these states, whether we nominate or recommend 3, 4, 5, 6 people per state. Now, within the states, there are different ethnic groups. The ethnic groups that have the upper or that have the political power will influence who is going to be selected. Most times, they will not base it on the score in the exams that was done. They will base it on where did it come from, who brought him. And this lowers standards and allows mediocre sort of to get into positions of authority. And by the time they get there, they have nothing to offer but to impoverish the people the more. Most countries that are developing also are divided over religion. They have the Christianity, they have the Islamic, they have the traditional. The religion that is in majority tends to dominate in government and in other aspects also, not minding whether they have what it takes or not. Most times appointments are made at religious houses where they select or they give names of people that are going to go into office. This character helps to impoverish African nations and does not allow for objectivity in everything that they do. Another thing that causes African nations to be backward and third world nations and developing countries of the world to be backward and to be impoverished is nepotism, tribalism, and to say corruption. Corruption. If somebody from a particular area gets into government as a politician, the expectation of the populace is that he's going to return back to them with something, with booty. The expectation is that he should bring development to their area. They forget that the individual, perhaps a minister, they forget that he's a minister not of their state. Yes, he came from their state, but it's representing the whole nation and is minister to the whole nation and not to a particular state or to his own local community. But pressure from all local communities. They expect him to come home and to give everybody money. Where does that money come from? They expect him, by so doing, to steal, to get the money, to do some corruption, some shady deals to get the money and make available to them. They don't ask him, how much are you paid? How are you able to come home and give us this every time? In fact, by the time he's coming, they are ailing him and asking him to give them things. So, such a politician is left with no choice than to give them what they want. And then the projects that's supposed to be coming to that community, the minister makes sure the project cost is the money has given them, he takes it from out of the project cost. And then the contractors, they do shoddy jobs. And after a while, the community starts shouting, and then they'll be wondering that despite that they have a minister see the shoddy job that was done, but they forget that they have collected the money, part of the money used that is supposed to be used for the project. Corruption is another bane of development in most countries of the world. The issue of corruption is so rampant. Everything is done. People expect kickbacks. When contracts are awarded, they expect to give them something in return. All these are corruption aiders. People expect you to rob their back. By the time you do your legitimate work, you start expecting gratification. All these makes corruption to reign. People that don't bribe or are not corrupt, don't give money for something, they keep their files under the table and they say they cannot find it for a long time. Others that are corrupt and have greased their hands, or that have said to them, or that have given them something, that have given them tips ahead, they tend to be favored. They see things moving, things rolling. They tend to be told that they know how things works. If developing nations of the world are going to develop, all this must stop. Nepotism must stop. Tribalism must stop. Corruption must stop. Religious sentiment, tribal sentiments must stop if we are really interested in development. Another thing that make developing countries the way they are, or not to be developed as they are, is what is called the resource cost. Developing countries, mostly they have some resources, natural resources, and then instead of them to organize themselves and see how they can share amicably natural resources, they start fighting over natural resource. They start destroying over the natural resource. They start killing themselves over the natural resource. They start doing all sorts of funny and unimaginable things to the brother, to the sister, to themselves because of these natural resources. Such that the natural resource now becomes a curse. This is a time for all these developing countries to wake up. We have natural resource in Nigeria, which is oil. But the oil have caused a lot of harm. Yes, the oil have brought money. We have the oil boom in 1970, in the early 1970s. We have the Doja War. We have a lot of things that have happened. Despite that, the oil is serving today as a curse. Why? Because some section of the community are shortchanged and they don't want to be shortchanged. And in the process of preventing shortchanging, they tend to take up to be destructive. We know about Salowiwa, Ken Salowiwa. He was an activist, eventually killed in the struggle by government fiat because he was a major activist. He was an environmental activist. Talking about the pollution in our data. What does it take to clean up where you get resources from? But that is not done because of personal aggrandizement. This is what happens and prevents development in developing countries. There are so many others, but I would like to stop here for now. These things I'm talking about, it affects families. It happens everywhere. Let us put our heads together. Let's come together and work as one. In America today, if a black man can do the job, if he can do it, if he can perform the surgery like Ben Carson did. Ben Carson was a black American, but he could do the surgery. He was the one that had the gifted hands that could take the instruments and be operating on the brain of people with precision. So he was allowed. He was given the chance. He led more than 50 people in the successful separation of twins that were joined together in their brain, in the head region, and he succeeded. If it were in a developing country, you can be sure that Ben Carson will be under the directive of a white individual, of another individual who is in the majority, even though he doesn't know much as Ben Carson. So, Ben Carson will be underused for the common goal. He will not be able to maximize the potential he has. Why? He is not the one that called the shots. It is high time changes are done. A change can start with you and it can start with me. Who is going to be the force that the change will start with? Let it start with you today. I'll talk to you some other time. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the notification button. Bye for now.